I have officially transferred ownership of our house to my parents. As we discussed the possibility of a divorce, Henry, with an icy demeanor, pointed at me and heartlessly demanded that I leave our home. Accompanied by a barrage of insults, his parents looked on with approving smiles, seeming to silently condone his behavior. Despite their harsh words, I remained calm and collected, internally resolved to leave. I had meticulously prepared for this moment, my bags packed well in advance. With a clear plan in mind, I left the house without a second thought, while they remained unaware of the significant repercussions that awaited them. My name is Amy, and I recently celebrated my 45th birthday. It's been many years since Henry and I were married. Our children have grown up and carved out their own independent lives away from home. I used to be an ordinary salaried worker, but now, thanks to a friend's introduction, I spend my days teaching others how to make handmade accessories. This transition from hobby to profession has been a pivotal moment in my life, providing fulfillment through my interactions with students and the daily joy of creating. While some may view turning a hobby into a career with skepticism, I find great satisfaction in it. Henry and I met by chance at my former workplace where he was employed with a client company. Our frequent meetings through work-related social events led to a deepening relationship. We eventually married for love, and after 4 years, we were blessed with a lively and healthy son. He has since graduated from a prestigious university and is now enjoying a successful and happy married life. However, despite our son's success, the relationship between Henry and me has faced challenges. Over the years, our relationship grew strained as Henry transformed dramatically. The once gentle and considerate man I married began to show a harsher side, becoming increasingly demanding and treating me more like a servant than a wife. His expectations and moods shifted daily, turning our home into a battleground over trivial issues. His bouts of verbal abuse escalated, and I found myself yearning for a fresh start away from this turmoil. However, an unpaid mortgage tethered me to our current situation. To complicate matters further, Henry inexplicably quit his job and has since spent his days idly at home, contributing nothing to the household chores, which left me to shoulder all responsibilities alone. The house we live in holds a special place in my heart, as I funded its recent reconstruction from my savings. It stands as a testament to my dreams and efforts, a space built with my vision and labor. The kitchen, spacious and meticulously planned, reflects my taste, despite Henry having some initial say in the design. Ultimately, I covered all the expenses and insisted that my preferences be honored. Constructing this house was both a challenge and a joy. It embodies everything I hoped it would, yet the financial cost was higher than expected, leading us to take on a larger loan than we had anticipated. Taking on such a substantial financial burden in our 45 success was daunting, but the potential for happiness in our new home gave us the strength to manage this debt. Despite this, Henry seemed dissatisfied. His ideas were only minimally reflected in the final design of the house. He frequently voiced his displeasure, dismissing the expenses as wasteful and akin to throwing money away. Despite his grievances, I focused on the joy and fulfillment our new home brought, choosing to overlook his dissatisfaction. Despite his grumbles, I persevered. Gradually, Henry ceased talking to me and instead resorted to childish antics like scattering trash and leaving messes around to annoy me. I often found myself pondering when this cycle of conflict would end, as these thoughts filled my days. A few months had passed since we moved into our new home when, unexpectedly, the doorbell rang. We weren't expecting visitors, which piqued my curiosity. As I was about to answer the door, Henry quickly stood and moved to open it himself, seemingly recognizing who it might be. Soon the sound of cheerful voices and laughter drifted from the entrance. When the living room door eventually opened, I was surprised to see my in-laws, Willie and Catherine. My relationship with them had always been strained. They had been cold and critical about my background from the moment we announced our marriage, maintaining an awkward distance even on our wedding day. Their sporadic post-marriage intrusions always left me wondering how to manage each encounter. Despite the absence of recent contact, their sudden visit took me aback. I greeted them politely, although a slight tension lingered. They walked past me without a word, deliberately ignoring me and even bumping into my shoulder. As they toured the house, they envied the spacious and well-designed kitchen. Henry, basking in the attention, proudly showed them around. Upon their return, their faces bore satisfied expressions, yet Henry's demeanor shifted abruptly. He turned stern and loudly commanded me to quickly prepare tea and snacks. Overwhelmed by his sudden outburst, I rushed to accommodate the request, feeling the weight of the moment as I set about making tea and snacks. Despite my best efforts to be hospitable, Henry's parents seemed dissatisfied. Willie quickly finished his snacks and tea, offering a brief compliment on the house's interior. Amidst this, Henry, beaming with pride, extended an invitation to his parents to move in with us, barely acknowledging my presence. As they listened to Henry and then left, I stood back observing their departing figures. The distance between Henry and me felt vast, especially seeing him so animated and joyful with his parents, a side of him I hadn't seen in a long time. Following Henry's invitation, his parents started visiting our house more frequently. Initially, their visits were a few times a month, but soon they increased to several times a week, and eventually almost daily. With each visit, their critiques towards me continued unabated, and Henry did nothing to discourage them. His blame towards me grew, along with relentless complaints about me supposedly causing our son distress. Amidst the increasing challenges, I felt unable to express the growing frustration within me. Resorting only to apologies, the visits from the in-laws became more frequent, often occurring during my absence. Henry and his parents left behind clear signs of their activities: beer cans, empty bottles, and spills that stained our new rug with alcohol. Despite my objections, our home began to reek of booze and felt increasingly unkempt. Henry's complaints about my contributions were ironic given that he did nothing around the house. His involvement in gambling introduced another layer of stress. Betting slips would frequently surface, underscoring the financial risks and the futility of explaining the dangers of gambling to him. The losses were particularly hard to bear, as the money squandered was earned from my exhaustive efforts. As the visits from the in-laws became more regular, they strategically chose times when I was away. This made it harder for me to manage the situation or assert any control over the increasingly chaotic and uncomfortable atmosphere in our home. One day, when I returned home earlier than expected, I found Henry and his parents leisurely enjoying themselves in our living room. Taken aback, I confronted them, but their dismissive replies and snarky attitudes made it clear they found my presence an annoyance. Frustrated and stressed by their insolent behavior, I realized I had reached my breaking point. Rather than giving in to my emotions, I resolved to formulate a plan to effectively handle the situation. In this ongoing turmoil, an unexpected incident occurred on a day I was usually away. The in-laws showed up unexpectedly, and their surprise at finding me at home was palpable. I couldn't help but make a sarcastic remark about them usually avoiding me, which they ignored as they confidently strolled into the house. Henry greeted them with a warm smile and proceeded to give them a tour, from the kitchen to the bathroom. Watching their thorough inspection, I grew suspicious of their motives, feeling there was a hidden agenda to their visit. As they left, their satisfied expressions hinted that they had confirmed something important. Curious and increasingly wary, I questioned their need for such detailed inspections and wondered if there was something they felt they needed to inform me about. I had previously warned Henry not to pry into my concerns, emphasizing that it was none of his business. Yet, his behavior suggested he was hiding something from me. I suspected he was attempting to manipulate the situation, although pinpointing his exact intentions was difficult. Observing and understanding the unfolding scenario became my only viable option. Then, one day after work, I arrived home to an unexpected sight: a large moving truck parked in front of our house bearing the logo Moving Center. Henry was deep in conversation with the truck driver and several representatives. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away and hurried back inside. What shocked me more was the simultaneous arrival of my in-laws. They greeted me casually as if nothing was amiss, and Henry welcomed them with open arms, ushering them into the house. The atmosphere was unmistakably tense, signaling that significant changes were about to unfold in our shared living situation. As I followed Henry and his parents inside, I immediately noticed a dramatic transformation. The familiar furnishings and personal items that had once filled our home were gone, replaced by my in-laws' outdated furniture, which was arranged as if they already lived there. Sitting down on the sofa, I was encircled by their smirky smiles, radiating smugness. Their behavior suggested that this change was not spontaneous, but rather part of a preconceived plan. Feeling a mixture of anxiety and resolve, I chose to sit quietly and observe what would happen next. The anxious glances exchanged by my in-laws only heightened the tense atmosphere. Soon they hinted there was something important they needed to discuss, suggesting a hidden agenda. Bracing myself and maintaining a facade of calm, I listened as Henry took a deep breath and disclosed that he had sold the house to his parents. He then proposed we get a divorce, to which his parents nodded in agreement, their smirky smiles betraying their delight in manipulating the situation. Despite the shocking revelation, I remained composed, having suspected their scheming. I swiftly signed the divorce papers, placed my wedding ring on the table, and announced my decision to leave. My suspicions about Henry and his parents' deceitful behavior, especially during their frequent visits in my absence, had led me to take precautionary measures. I had installed surveillance cameras around the house, which I could access via my smartphone. On the first day, I monitored their casual interactions, but it wasn't long before I stumbled upon footage that confirmed my worst fears. In the video, Henry and his parents were seen joyfully discussing the sale of the house. Shocked but now fully aware of their intentions, I began to plan my next steps carefully. Based on the evidence gathered from the surveillance, I started searching for a new place to live, ready to move forward from this betrayal. Taking decisive action, I initiated the transfer of the home loan from my name to Henry's. If they intended to oust me from our shared home, it only seemed fair that they should take on the mortgage payments and all associated responsibilities. The monthly mortgage payment was $3,800, a sum drawn from my hard-earned salary. I had serious doubts that Henry and his parents, given their current employment situations, could handle this financial burden. Resolved to cut all financial ties, I did not offer any support. Now, free from the strains of that relationship, I moved into a new, neatly arranged home, furnished with new items, eager to start afresh. On a peaceful day off, enjoying the luxury of resting well past noon, my relaxation was abruptly interrupted by the doorbell. To my astonishment, Henry and his in-laws stood at my doorstep, uninvited and unexpected. They barged in without waiting for an invitation and spread out a document in front of me, accusing me of illegally changing the loan terms without their permission. I was astounded by their boldness. They explained that shortly after I had left the old house, they had received notification of the loan name change. Henry and his parents, all currently unemployed, were taken aback, claiming they were unable to afford the hefty monthly payments. In a heated outburst, Henry adamantly stated they would not cover the payments. Trying to reason with them, I explained the consequences of defaulting on the loan including how interest and late fees could dramatically escalate their financial burden. Henry listened, initially skeptical but beginning to grasp the gravity of the situation. After Henry looked up the loan information online, his face morphed into an expression of shock and distress. I suggested that it was time for them to seek new employment opportunities for a fresh start. Their faces turned even paler as the gravity of their situation sank in. They confessed to having no savings or assets, with Henry weighed down by significant gambling debts and lacking a stable income. They pleaded for understanding and help, referencing the years we had spent together. Unmoved by their pleas, I closed the door on them, eager to distance myself from any attempts they might make to salvage the relationship. Frustrated, they reported me to the police, which ultimately led to their removal from my property. Due to their financial difficulties, they eventually moved to a more affordable apartment on the outskirts of town, where Henry managed to secure a part-time job to support his family. Meanwhile, my life continued unchanged. I concentrated on my job and, in my spare time, I started a blog about handmade crafts. The blog gained popularity, leading to a significant increase in my monthly income as requests for me to lead workshops and courses came pouring in. I harbored no thoughts of remarrying and planned to navigate life on my terms. One day, I discovered an old household account book from the early days of my marriage. Flipping through its pages brought back memories of our financial struggles. With a renewed sense of determination, I decided to forge a new path toward happiness independently. After reflecting on the past, I placed the account book back on the shelf, ready to focus on building a fulfilling future.